again. Are you all set? Do you have your drinks? Great. Good evening, good evening. Asante sana. Welcome everyone to Ampath Tusker Tales storytelling event. Again, make yourself comfortable, get a drink, whatever you need. Be comfortable because you're in for a treat tonight. My name is Jerona Rotich, your MC for this evening. And I am an Associate Dean of Organizational Climate, Inclusion, and Belonging in the School of Public Health at the Bloomington campus. I'm also an Advisory Council member of the IU Center for Global Health Equity, born and raised in Eldoret, and thank you so much for what you're doing. I appreciate you. If I don't get a chance to give you a hug and to thank you, please know that we thank you, we appreciate what you're doing for our people in Kenya. We're delighted to have so many people here tonight from all over, from Kenya, and we'd like to start with a brief welcome from Dr. Adrian Gardner, the Executive Director, Ampath Consortium, and Director of Ohio Center for Global Health Equity. Welcome, Dr. Adrian. Woo-hoo! He's amazing. I had a good time with him in Kenya in May, so you are in for a treat. Welcome, sir.
Thank you so much, Professor Rotich, and thanks again for being our MC again this year, back by popular demand for sure. So. Let me just share a warm welcome to all of you for being here, and thank you all for being here tonight, and particularly our Kenyan leadership from MTRH who are here, and you'll get to hear from a number of them in a few minutes, so you get to meet them. As many of you know, my Ampath story started 23 years ago in 2001 when I traveled to Eldoret as a student, just at really the peak of the HIV epidemic, and caught the bug, got hooked. And it was obvious then that this medical school partnership was really one that dreamed big. And as Joe Mamlin used to tell us, work hard all day and dream all night. And it's so rewarding to see decades later many of those dreams really come to fruition. And that's in large part due to people like the storytellers you're here tonight, and really thanks to all of you for the support that you provide. This is a really exciting time for Ampath. We're launching a 5-year plan to serve 40 million people, not just in Kenya, but now in Ghana and Mexico and Nepal, and really expanding the ability of this institutional partnerships, and really thrilled to have all of your support in that effort. I wanted to recognize a few people here. We're excited to have, obviously, everybody. We're here with people from all over Indiana University, trainees, faculty from the health systems, Eskenazi Health, IU Health, but want to recognize a few of our sponsors here tonight, and in particular, Indiana University Health, who made it possible for our Kenyan leadership to be here, and also our elephant tusker sponsor. Got to get the term right. I also want to thank our leopard sponsors tonight, and I think they're being shown up on the screen here. So the Indiana Hemophilic and Thrombosis Center and Innovative Hematology, which, as many of you know, is doing incredible work in addressing sickle cell and hemophilia in Western Kenya, and has been a strong supporter of our effort for many, many years. The Deem team, so Andy and Stephanie Deemer at Talk to Tucker Realtors are also sponsored tonight, and they've, I'm told, found homes for several of our Ampath family here in Indianapolis, so thank you for that. And also thank you for your support of our silent auction. And then, of course, our Second Presbyterian Church community, who really have walked alongside the Kenya partnership for many, many years, supporting our First Surgery long-term faculty member, and the Riley Mother Baby Hospital, and so many more initiatives really within the Ampath Kenya partnership. Before I pass over the mic to the more exciting stuff, I want to just thank the staff also who put this event on. Obviously, a lot of work goes into this, and take a pause to sort of thank them. I also just want to recognize a few of our distinguished guests here tonight. So our Kenyan leadership, as I said, you'll meet here in a few minutes. We have several of our Ampath founders here tonight, so Joe and Sarah Lynn Mamlin, Bob and Leanne Einhertz, please stand. We also have Dean Jay Hess and Robin, current Dean of the School of Medicine. And Craig and Stephanie Brader, I see somewhere, of course. So we thank you all for being here, and we certainly count you among our dreamers. So I'm going to turn over the stage back to you and introduce our speakers. We'll get going. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Adrian. We appreciate all your support and everything that you do. I want to start by recognizing a few people here this evening. If you're a previous storyteller at Tusker Tales, will you please stand up to be recognized? Woohoo! Woohoo! Yay! I'm going to do a Kenyan one. Thank you so much. If you didn't listen to those stories, please go to the website. They're amazing, life-changing stories. So thank you again. We appreciate you. We're also thrilled to have with us here tonight a great group of leaders and trainees from Eldoret, Kenya. Will you please stand and give a wave as I recognize you? We're honored to have leaders from Moi Teaching Referral and Hospital with us here for an exchange with leaders from IU Health. We have Dr. Philip Kirwa, CEO of Moi Teaching Referral and Hospital. We have Anne Gemorso, Human Resources and Training Development Director. Woo-hoo! We have Christine Tonui, Director of Health Administration and Operations. Please give them a warm, warm welcome. Let me tell you, people from Kenya have been calling us all day. They thought the event is 5:30 Kenyan time. So listen, do not disappoint them because they're waiting at night. They're watching on Facebook Live. Thank you and welcome. We have Moi University medical students here in Indiana for 6 weeks of training supported by Enters Education Fund. We have Camilla Amonga. Camilla, where are you? Please stand. Okay. Oh, she's here. Okay. We have Ibrahim Barassa. Ibrahim, oh, you're all sitting together. Okay. Okay. We have Joyce Wamboi Kamau. And James Waititu, one of our storytellers tonight. Welcome, and we are honored to have you here tonight, and welcome to Indiana. Also with us, we have 2 pediatric registrars, or residents, as we call them here in the U.S. from Moi University. We have Sarah Nekesa Mandu, right there. Sarah, why are you hiding? Then we have Gloria Kaya Kouko. We also have Kenya nursing students from Moi University who are here for the first time. Victor Kiblagat. And Olivia Wate. All right. I'm told you're in Bloomington this week, so come over for a cup of chai, ugali, na sukuma wiki. And thank you so much for everyone who is here tonight. And if you're on social media tonight, you can turn on your phone. Please use the hashtag Tusker Tales or tag Ampath Kenya. We have an amazing lineup of storytellers for you tonight, starting with a warm welcome from the MTRH CEO, Dr. Philip Kirwa. Remember, everybody is watching you in Kenya, so make it sweet. Karibu daktari. So as he comes on stage, Dr. Philip Kirwa is the Chief Executive Officer of Moi Education, Moi Teaching Referral and Hospital, MTRH Kenya. Kenya's second largest public health, serving a population of approximately 25 million people in Kenya and neighboring countries. He's an OBGYN specialist with over 28 years of experience in medicine and reproductive health. As CEO, he brings forth a wealth of experience both in medical practice and administration, having previously served as a chief medical specialist for 8 years, medical director, private wing for 14 years, and director for reproductive health before rising to the position of senior director, clinical services, a position he held from 2018 to 2023. Under his leadership, the hospital has expanded in several spheres, including subspecialized services, cochlear implantation, kidney transplant, open heart surgery, and corneal transplant, among others, and an increase of a number of patients who are being attended to and taken care of with complexity of diagnosis. Welcome, Daktari. Let's give him a Kalenjin welcome.
So thank you very much, our MC. Good evening, everybody. Hamjamboni. Chamge. Chamge gogen. Tumsifu Yesu Kristo. Daima na milele. I see all of you understand how I speak. Thank you. So I don't have a story to tell, but I'll just read something small, then I'll tell you something after that. So first, I want to appreciate everybody for being here today. It's great that we worked this journey for the last 35 years or so, and here we are today. For me, this is my first time being in this place, essentially in the US, and I really want to thank everybody who has facilitated us to be here, and all the contributions that all of you have done to ensure that the partnership has grown over the years. So just allow me to read some few lines of an official appreciation of the Indiana team and Ampath program. So a remarkable partnership between Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital, Moi University and School of Medicine and the Hospital of Indiana, and the Indiana team have built one of the most remarkable successful programs in the care of HIV/AIDS initially, and now expanded to many other diseases, including chronic diseases in parts of Kenya and other parts of Africa and the world. This is truly a remarkable achievement in only 3 decades. In this aspect, calling upon all the resources of the American people and the ingenuity of Kenyans and other people from the world have enabled us to achieve all these milestones. And as we know, currently we are hoping that we will be nominated for the Nobel Peace Prize to take us and make us recognized all over the world. The US ambassador at some point also recognized us and the work that Ampath have done, which has been very remarkable and made a big difference to the people of Kenya and the people of the world. The doctors from Kenya and the United States have employed methods which were once considered invisible and made a big difference in creating models for care against formidable odds. For all those who were there initially in the program, and I want to recognize Joe Mamlin and his team, that when they came to Kenya initially to help development of the medical school, they were losing all their patients, and hence the fact that they thought that, how do we train students when all our specimens are dying? And I think at that point, the aspect and thinking of what can be done to save these patients from death, because everybody who had been diagnosed in the earlier parts of HIV/AIDS was actually a death sentence. And many descriptions were made of those patients, including calling them the walking dead. Counterparts relationships at both individual and departmental levels have become the cornerstone of the Indiana Moy University and Moy MTRH partnership. This partnership currently involves collaboration among virtually all the major disciplines in both medical schools through the administrative arms of both IUSM portion, and the partnerships as handled primarily within its division of general internal medicine. After initial success with the Indiana Moy University partnership, we sought to make a wider impact on academic medicine in Sub-Saharan Africa. And since 1997, several other North American medical institutions joined for a bigger impact. And the partnership has continued to grow. I wish to acknowledge especially the following people who made big impacts in the milestones that we've gone through. Joseph and Sarah Ellen Mamlin. For 20 years, after retiring from his previous employment, having come to Kenya in the year 2000, he made a very big impact and became the founder and the cornerstone which enabled us to be where we are today. At the last celebrations a few years ago, a lot of patients whose lives he had touched together with his wife gave their testimonies and were extremely happy and very touching talks about what that family had done. Without people like Joe Mamlin, we would not be sitting here today. I also want to recognize great Craig Bretta, who is a pharmacological researcher, a professor of pharmacology, and a former dean of the Indiana School of Medicine, and IU Vice President for University Clinical Affairs. Allow me also to recognize Robert Ainters, again, for his contribution. The other person I would really want to recognize again is David Matthew, I don't know if he's here, who built Majaliwa with his own hands. I hope he's here. The third and fourth is Professor James Lemons, Professor of Pediatrics, and you all know our Riley Mother-Baby Hospital, where we take care of women as they come in to deliver and the babies post-delivery. He enabled us to move from a nursery of about 4 baby cots to the current 80 beds. And thank you very much, Professor James Lemon. The other person I also want to appreciate is Tierney William, for his dedication in writing proposals, which I'm told he used to do overnight. And by the next day, he had a full proposal. He made a big impact, and especially in what they called the the AMRLs, which was an evolution from Mosoriot medical records. The other persons also I want to recognize is Pettigrew Ronald, among the many others who are also seated here today. And as we move forward, we hope to continue with the collaboration, with the working together and the partnership. And going forward, we hope that we'll have more facilitation and ease of our Kenyans being able to come to the US, and also enabling us on the other side to benefit from whatever is possible to get from the United States and the people of the US. Thank you. Allow me now to just say a story. I can put this off. Yeah. So I hope my 7 minutes can start from here. Yeah. Yeah. So I just want to tell you a story about how we grew up in our villages. In my village, I come from a place near her home in Eldoret. That's Kirono's place. But down just beyond her home area, there's a place called Kirwa Valley. There's a sub-tribe of Kalenjins called Marakwets. Marakwet are traditional surgeons who used to do laparotomy, would do crinotomy, would do thoracotomies in their homes. The anesthetic agent was alcohol. The alcohol that all of us take, okay? In our culture, it's called changa. It's 70% alcohol proof. So it's almost like spirit. So back in 1992, as a young man, I think I was like some of the students who are here, I went to do attachment in a place called Kapsowar, a mission hospital. There one day, we were brought a patient whose intestines were hanging outside after having had laparotomy in the village. They only covered it with a sack. And so when the patient came in, of course, because it's a hardship area, they walked like 5 kilometers, not 5 kilometers, quite a long distance. They walked almost 5 days. Part of the gut was rotten. So when the nurses saw the patient, they actually took off. They ran away because they could not imagine somebody walking with the intestines outside. That was one. The next one that I saw was a patient whose part of the cranium on the right side had been opened. It was bubbling. So you see the way when he talks, you actually see the brain bubbling on the left side. And the third one that I saw in that village is a patient who's a man who had been, the wife had tried to kill him actually at night when he was asleep because he had been unfaithful. So he put a panga, you know, I don't know what you call a panga in this side? A machete through the neck. So when he put that through the neck, when the man started coughing through the trachea, she thought the man was dead. So she took off, ran away. Also wanted to kill herself. So she went and climbed a tree with a rope and jumped down. She didn't die, but she got also a cut on the trachea. So both of them arrived in the hospital as patients. So this lady went to her home. She was brought by her parents. The man was brought by the brothers and the relatives to the same hospital. So the other one was put in a male ward, the other one was put in a female ward. Now, the patient who had laparotomy, of course, the surgeons, we were young students, so the surgeons went over, opened them, cleaned them, stitched them, put a colostomy, and finally survived. The one who had the craniotomy had been done on the right side, just bubbling. He survived there for almost 3 months, being cleaned every day. Unfortunately, the day he was repaired, you know, he was cleaned with a brush and soap by a paramedic. So the way you would scrub, so he scrubbed off the parts of the brain. The man was dead the next day. Now this other one, the family who had tried to kill themselves, so the man was living in one ward, the wife was staying in another ward. So the families were not talking. You know, now they are enemies because one wanted to kill the other one. So slowly, because it's a mission hospital, the pastor kept talking to the man and talking to the lady, mediating, brought the families together. So this man, of course, he was repaired. He survived. The lady also survived. So finally, they agreed to come and share a room because of the mediation done by the pastor. And they came together. By the time they were leaving the hospital, they were again in love. Okay, so this is a story, or these stories are to tell you the hardships that we've come through. 1993 is hardly about 30 years or 31 years ago. 30 years ago, we would still be able to do traditional craniotomy. Yet, when we imagine, and you've heard what we are able to do currently in MTRH, for example, is that now we have the state-of-the-art theaters. We're able to do proper craniotomies, proper thoracotomies, laparotomies of all kinds, courtesy of the support from our government, the people that we worked together over the years to make a bigger difference. And I think that going forward, we will even do much more and much better than what we've done in the past. So thank you, everybody. We hope to continue with this partnership to make a bigger difference for our society so that we stop doing craniotomies in the villages and in the bush. Thank you very much.
Dr. They wanted to do one of those on my teeth, and I ran away. Sonak D. Pastakia is a professor in the Purdue University College of Pharmacy Center for Health Equity and Innovation. Sonak and his wife, Rocky, and their family have spent much of the last 15 years based in Western Kenya, working with Ampath. His story is titled, Learning to Care the Ampath Way. Welcome, Dr.
Asante. Well, I'm sure all of you are familiar with Ampath's Leading with Care motto, that never fully captured what was at the heart of all the success of Ampath. For me, that misses a key step, and that's learning to care. For those of you who have spent extended periods of time in Kenya, I'm guessing you know what I'm talking about without ever even thinking about it before. And for me, it's learning to care is this indescribable subconscious sense of simply responding to needs whenever you see them without any hesitation. I specifically decided to talk about this aspect because it was what was missing in my first global health experience. Like many other people in the audience, I was able to have the privilege of joining a team of healthcare providers on a global health rotation in Kenya. I was eager to learn about how I could respond to many of the harrowing pictures of AIDS that I saw on TV. As our team of 30 providers traveled to Kisumu, I realized very quickly that something was missing in this team. Day after day, we would visit one public sector facility after another and see long lines of people with visibly diagnosable AIDS coming to our clinics seeking help from us. They made the very logical decision that this team of providers, this team of Wazungu, who freely gave out antiretrovirals in the US, could hopefully do the same for them. Unfortunately, they met a team of hopeless providers who were complacent with the notion that Kenyan providers didn't deserve any better than what we decided to give them in that 30 days that we were there. And what we said was, just go to the government facility. We passed the buck and did nothing for them. So simply put, for me, the missing ingredient was this learning to care. This group of providers, including myself, never really learned how to care. And as we wrapped up our experience and had all these final discussions and the debriefings, what I was really struck by was how the majority of these providers saved most of their criticism for the decision that we made that we couldn't travel to Mombasa because of the elevated terrorism threat. And so for me, as I'm sure many of you know me, as I unloaded all the anger, guilt, and frustration I felt over this three-week trip, I basically wasn't invited to join them again. And I'm sure there's many people in the audience who know exactly what I'm talking about. They've all been subjected to Sonak rants. But for me, I don't know how to be any other way. And so the guilt and anger I felt for being a part of this is what fueled the rest of my career, that I simply couldn't let this stand. And for me, what I really wanted was to have people around me who shared the same perspective, who felt that same anger, who did not think it was acceptable to be complacent in the face of treatable illnesses. And so I also realized that until I did something about this dynamic, nothing in my career really felt worthwhile. I'm sure for those of you who know Rocky, she knew me at the time, she could see the change. Like, I was a very different person afterwards. I was even more bitter and angry than many of you know now. And so for me, if you could fast forward a couple years, I got HIV training because I wanted to learn how to treat HIV, did an MPH because I figured I needed to know how to manage public health issues. And then for me, I got my dream job as my first job and was able to join Ampath. And if you could take a look at the picture that I'm hoping you can present on the board. When I joined Ampath, these were the scenes that I saw when I went to Eldoret. Now, while most people walk by scenes like this every day, the more time you spend at Ampath, the more it becomes impossible to keep walking. And I want you to all take a moment and take this picture in. At first glance, you might miss the street youth who's blurred out and is on this pile of trash. But the more that you learn to care the Ampath way, that simple act of passivity becomes intolerable. And for Tim Mercer and other folks who helped lead the work for street youth, that was how we felt. We couldn't go to sleep at night knowing that this was the reality we were left with. And so for me, I had the privilege of working with people like Samuel Kamani, who basically gave up his permanent pensionable teaching job to dedicate his career to building a center like Tumaini, which tries to directly address problems like this. So that center that took us over a decade to build now supports children just like this, and upon graduation, we have a 90% placement rate. Now I want you to take another look at that picture. There's another part that typifies what so many of us spend our days working on and nights dreaming about. I'm glad that there's Kenyans in the room. Can you see the fence in the background? You see how it says "like much now" painted? Anybody, for bonus points, do you remember what the full saying was from Crown Paints? This is a picture from Eldoret. This was taken by one of the street youth. Anybody remember the full saying? Shout it out if you know it. It doesn't look like much now. Wait till it's painted. Now, I want you to take a minute to take in the immense power of that statement within the context of this picture. For me, that's what Ampath is about. So keeping that picture in mind, learning to care the Ampath way also gives you the power to imagine the art of the possible, as opposed to being burdened by the weight of impossibility. These, of course, as I'm sure many of you know, are not my sayings, but instead are many of the Mamlinisms that so many of us had the privilege of being surrounded by for so many years. Raise your hand if you've heard these sayings before at some point. I'm sure these are all the folks who've been in Ampath for long enough. Now, I'm sure many of you got to watch the Democratic National Convention, and especially in this audience, I'm sure that's probably true. One of the lines that consistently brought a smile to my face was when everybody in unison chanted, "Thank you, Joe." And so for me, and so many other in the room, I don't want to thank Joe for a specific thing that he did or any specific act of kindness. I want to thank him for teaching me how to care, because that's a lesson, that's a gift that you'll never forget and you'll never leave behind. And it's not just learning to care, it's how to fight. It's how to never give up on a dream, even when everybody tells you that you're wrong, that it's not possible, that it's too expensive, or gives you any number of excuses for inactivity. Now, for those of us who work with Joe and have seen Joe and I work, we frequently disagreed on what to do and how to go about doing it, almost every time. But the thing I'll say is I don't ever recall at any single time disagreeing with Joe on why we had to do something. And the more time I spend in America, the more that I don't take that for granted. I spent 15 years of my career working in Ampath, and basically, I just took it for granted that all these people I work with basically knew how to do this. And so the reason is obvious. It's this Ampath culture that's been created to teach us to care, and more importantly, do something about it without dictating how it should be done. That was always the fun part he wanted us to embrace. And if you could go to the next picture. This picture also captures for me what Ampath is about. And it basically typifies learning to care and working together to create opportunities for those who face barriers that few of us could ever imagine. This simple picture of Joe Mamlin, Benson Karagu, and Ellen Shalehouse, who leads the Purdue activities, captures Ampath at its best. I randomly found this in one of the houses and just grabbed it and thought it would be useful one day. So here we are. And what's so fascinating and impressive about this picture is that we weren't working together to bloat our own egos like that first trip I was on. We were working together to support the dreams of this young kid who wanted to do all the things that many of us do. And instead of following the aspirations of academic institutions to chase the next grant or do any of these things, the outcome we were looking for was his success. And fortunately, because of that chance encounter between Joe, Ellen, and Benson, I get to enjoy the fruits of their activities. Benson now leads our community screening activities in Wabuye and also works with street youth at Tonui so that they don't replicate the same issues that he's had. And part of the reason why I'm here today is that we're here to celebrate 20 years of the Purdue-Kenya partnership. And I find myself reflecting on what we are celebrating. And what I realize is that it isn't any particular accomplishment or award, but it's instead 20 years of giving a damn, 20 years of believing in and fighting for people that others have given up on, and lastly, it's 20 years of having the privilege to work with all of you. And these are all people who've been instilled with the same ideals and go to work every day fighting for something bigger than themselves. And I hope you've all taken as much enjoyment as I have in this, but also embracing the challenge of passing on these learnings to the next generation of learners who might not have the privilege to work with the Mamlins, the Jakites, the Manjis, the Karamas, who continue to make Ampath possible all over the world. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to all of you, and I look forward to the next 20 years of working together.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ari and Ruki. We appreciate you. Next, we have Dr. Kara Wools-Kaloustian, Co-Director of Research for Ampath and Director of Research for the IU Center for Global Health Equity. Dr. Wools-Kaloustian has research expertise in HIV/AIDS, chronic disease care, and reciprocal innovation. She was in the first IU School of Medicine residency class to complete rotation at Moore University in 1991. In January, Dr. Wools-Kaloustian will move to Eldoret full-time to serve as Ampath Kenya's new executive site director. Her story is titled, yes, we appreciate you. Her story is titled, "What do you do when you find a naked man lying in the middle of the road?" Wow, wow. Welcome.
So what do you do when you find a naked man in the middle of the road? So to give you context, this story happened at the dawn of This story happened at the dawn of our HIV care and treatment program. We had just started to think about things like food insecurity. It would be a decade before we thought about mental health issues. I was driving from my home in Kemosa to IU House to pick up a friend for dinner, and I turned off the main road, and as I was turning, I saw this naked man walk into the road and lay down like he was laying on a bed. And I stopped, and I looked again, and I'm like, there's a naked man in the middle of the road. I am not hallucinating. So you have to realize I am a profound introvert and really, really shy. And when I end up in social situations that are not well structured, I get very stressed. This is not a well structured social situation. So I go through my process for solving problems because it helps me with my anxiety. And so I name the problem. There is a naked man in the middle of the road. What do I do? I call on my fund of knowledge, and I remember this man, a little more modestly dressed, wandering around Eldoret, engaging in behaviors that clearly told me that he had a mental health issue. And so I added to my knowledge base, and I got out of the car, And I asked him in my very broken Swahili, because Wycliffe doesn't tell you what motivated you to lay down naked in the middle of the road at sunset. What he was doing. He didn't look to be hurt. He seemed alert and awake. And he responded to me in a language that I did not speak. So, I call on my skill set, and I have to say that nothing in my medical training prepared for me to deal with a naked man in the middle of the road. So the next thing that happened was I'm like, call an expert. Today I might have Googled it, but I'm a little afraid of what Dr. Google would have said to what do you do with a naked man in the middle of the road? But so I thought, my friend is standing at IU House at the guard station. Perhaps one of the Ascaris can help me figure out what to do. So I called my friend, and in the middle of disbelief and astonishment, she agrees to get one of the Ascaris to come up. And by this time, it is dark, because sunset comes very quickly in Eldred. And my car's sitting in the middle of the road, and I'm standing in the road, and this gentleman is still in the road. And so I'm a little stressed. And suddenly my saviors come out of the dark. And it's two Ascaris and my friend, and one of the Ascaris tries to talk to the man, but unfortunately he's clueless too about what the man is saying. And so we have a team convocation, and we decide that the best thing to do is take the man to the hospital to be evaluated. And so one of the guards had brought a jacket with him and helped the man get into the jacket, which improved the modesty quotient of the team substantially. And we got him into the car, and we got him to Waititu and Referral Hospital. And by the time we reached casualty, we were a team. We had a mission. We were going to get him admitted to the hospital where he could be taken care of and he would be safe for the night. And along the way, we had figured out with hand gestures and language that he was very, very hungry. So we got to casualty, and one of the Ascaris went off to get food, and one of the Ascaris went to pay the admission fee, and my friend and I geared up to do battle with the medical officer in charge of the ER that night to get this gentleman admitted to the hospital. Now, what I clearly recall from the hours in casualty is the joy on this man's face when the Ascari came and handed him a loaf of bread, because clearly he was starving. We eventually succeeded in our mission. He got admitted to the hospital. He ended up with a mental health diagnosis and treatment. Today, thanks to the pioneering work of our former Dean Atwoli, the late and much beloved Dr. Edith Quoba, and Dr. Matthew Terracini, as well as scores of other leaders, healthcare providers, community volunteers, and donors, we have both mature and emerging mental health programs. And today, he would have gotten better care than he did then. So what I learned from this was with a motley team in the middle of the night and no preparation, you can solve someone's problems for a day or a week, but with planning and dedication and a community, you can solve people's problems for a lifetime. So all it takes is asking the question, what do you do? And the knowledge that you don't have to answer the question alone. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much. Thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, thank you. Christine is the Director of Operations at Moy Teaching and Referral Hospital. She was the inaugural leader of Moore University's Research and Sponsored Programs Office and holds an MBA and Masters of Science in Research Administration and Management. She is a beloved friend of many in the Ampath family. Her story is titled, Rising Together, My Path of Growth with Ampath. Welcome, Christine.
Good evening, everyone. Christine Tonui. Many of you know me as Chwani, Director at Health Administration at Waititu Hospital. So my story today is Rising Together, My Path of Growth in Ampath, and I'll speak to the many relationships and how Ampath has helped me over the years to be where I am. And I'll start by saying that there are two significant turning points in my life where I interacted with Ampath. The first was when I was a fourth-year student, and my colleague Kirwa and I were identified as the first public health students through, of course, academic performance. I'm not bragging, but I was the best girl. Then, and we were nominated to go to Linköping University, and we joined the medical students who had been coming to IU over many years, and that's when I met Sarah Ellen Mamlin. She took me through the journey of going through my first international trip with Professor Mening, you know, what to expect, how to make sure that we maximize our time at Linköping University and make sure that we create a good example to ensure other public health students go. So it was, thank you, Sarah Ellen. And then, in 2003, after being hired by MTRH, John Seidel and Doug Schaefer, who took me through being a human subjects administrator so that I was fit for purpose, together with Robert Rono, and recommended for Robert Rono and I to start up the Research and Sponsored Projects Office. And that's when they went and told the bigwigs then, that was Professor Mamlin, Professor Tsula, Mengech, that these two young Turks, I think, can do this job, so let's take a chance on them. And of course, the bigwigs in this other side of the ocean, Bob Baintias and Bob Biltiani, said, okay, let's give them a try, and we were told to start up the Research and Sponsored Projects Office. So those years were hard, I wouldn't cheat you. It was, as a public health student, I've not done a lot of administration, but they were so patient with us. And they took us through the journey of what does project management entail? How do you manage all these monies that are going to be coming your way? Simple things like doing invoices. And I remember Prof used to give us chocolates when he saw we were understanding the project management lingo. He would give us chocolates and say, you know, good job, let's keep going. And we didn't let him down. And that training investment also entailed so many people who changed our lives. And Akina Tom Betley, Professor Tsula, Dunia, who incidentally was my mentor, and now she's my mentee, you know, so it was so interesting. And I just want to say, may God bless you, all of you, for trusting my 20-year-old something self then. Don't start calculating how old I am now. With such a huge assignment. And maybe if I'd known then what it would entail, I'm not very sure I would have taken the job, but we did. And after that, RSPO grew. Of course, leadership changed, but what was so great about it is that our leadership kept putting in policies, because, you know, I mean, we had not done it before, but they kept putting policies in place that would help us make sure that the projects grow. We started just from a project that was $50,000, and now they're managing millions and millions of dollars. And through that process, we had the likes of Prof. Kimayo, Nyandiko, Kara, who has just spoken, Ayuo, Akina Mamlin, who never left our side and kept pushing us up and telling us, okay, you know, these are the audits, this is how it's supposed to go. They kept teaching us and letting us, holding our hands. And we were able to see a shift. Many of the speakers who have spoken before me have talked about the HIV program, but even for us in RSPO, we're able to see things change. Akina Sonak came in with Purdue. We saw the informatics program grow. There was so much. The cardiology program also grew. And in the process, we met other 20-year-olds, Akina Adrian, Laura, Sherri, Akina Sonak were there, Naomi Lundman, so many relationships that we built, and even Akina Sean Woodins and Morris, quite a number of people who we built relationships and helped me grow. I take this opportunity to really appreciate like Brown University that took us as Fogarty Fellows to do our Masters in Research Administration. And at that point in time, as we're growing, it was a period in my life where I wrote my first grant. I remember Bill Tiani taking me through it, and when we got the grant, he said, now the hard work begins, Christine, this is it. So it was quite some, and through it all, what I really appreciate is that as RSPO grew, we not only built these relationships, but there was a lot of integrity and trust. Even where people made mistakes, they were able to come up and we would correct each other and move forward together as a family. There was no man left behind. It was almost like an army, and we marched on and made sure that we grew. And this growth also, I grew, and these relationships were so good that even as people's families grew, we bonded, as we became now, we stopped partying and now became serious parents. We grew in terms of how our families were growing. Don't ask me how many children I have, but there are many. But it was a beautiful journey. And through it, I think that the lessons that I learned in Ampath is what helped me get my current job today, where I was competitively hired to be the Director of Health Administration at MTRH. And I see the lessons I learned then being applied in my job now. Of course, now I have a new people who are molding me, of course, from the CEO, Prof. Kirwa, my immediate boss, Dr. Tarus, who is an FSC now, who has helped me also get my certifications in governance, and the entire hospital management team of MTRH. But we continue to work together with Ampath and rising together, doing a lot of operational research, and seeing the lessons that I learned in Ampath have helped me currently in my current job, especially making sure that we support each other and don't leave anybody behind, because that's the chance these guys give me, and it's important for us to give it back. So Ampath, of course, seeing how it has grown and helped us at MTRH, it is my prayer that as much as we've grown our infrastructure, as our CEO said, we've grown in terms of human resource and training, clinical specializations, research and all, that let's not stop there. These relationships, I believe now is the time to explore the new frontiers. 2 minutes, Bana. I wasted seconds. Stop laughing. I believe this is the time that we can move forward better, as we're moving into Ampath Global. Women in Leadership is there. The CHAR team is there to support us. What are we doing to support these young Turks, make sure that 20 years from now, they'll be standing here and giving their story in terms of how we help them walk. I look at like the Mwangaza program led by Talent Betsy, and how it has supported medical students. Some of them who have benefited are here today, and this relationship that you've built with Ampath, don't let it die, pass it on, we are where we are because somebody trusted in me when I was so young, and I hope that we'll continue to build and grow together and make Kenya great, make Ghana great, make Nepal great. but more so, make sure that we don't go back to that picture of Sonak. Yes? And keep coming up with new innovations, new frontiers that will make us better. So thank you very much. I don't know whether to give other greetings like the Luyas, but I want to say hi to the people in Kenya. Thank you.
She forgot to finish the Luya greetings, right? Great, I told you are in for a treat tonight. I mean, those stories are just amazing. Thank you, Christine. We are now going to take a short intermission break to refill your drink and food, and also to check out our silent auction with some great items from Kenya and Indiana that will raise funds for Ampath's work in Kenya. Our next speaker is Dr. Terry Vick, a professor of pediatrics at Indiana University School of Medicine and Riley Hospital for Children. He leads childhood cancer care, training, and research in Indiana and in Kenya with Ampath. His story is titled, "It's the Little Things." Welcome, Dr. Vick. Woohoo! Welcome.
Thank you, thank you. All right, start the second half. It's good to be here tonight. So I'll start off by just saying that I'm generally an optimist. I think you have to be if you're a pediatric oncology physician taking care of children with cancer, because that doesn't bring out a lot of smiles in people. I've been doing pediatric oncology training in Kenya for 15 years now, helping to take care of kids as well as training Kenyans to do the same. And so after my first trip into Kenya, it became very clear to me very early that we needed a whole lot more than just the best chemotherapy regimens. That was the mantra back in the 80s and 90s. Oh, we just give the right chemotherapy and we can cure all these kids. But it was very clear that from getting kids from the villages into the district hospital, to Eldoret, to making a diagnosis, to having the chemotherapy to treat them, the nursing support, the ability to administer drugs, manage supportive care, manage blood products, antibiotics, all of these things. Even as simple as having a sink with running water where you could wash your hands. It was just all of these little things that were so important. So after about 10 years of a visit once or twice a year, doing a little bit here and there, I decided it was time to really make a commitment. So I was fortunate enough to apply get a Fulbright Scholar Award. With that award, in September of 2019, I was able to spend 9 months dedicated to a couple of projects that they wanted me to do with their support. So one was to train Kenyans, create a curriculum for training Kenyan pediatric hematologist oncologists. The second one was to go out into the community and sort of create a network of referral so that we could have awareness in the community so that we could get kids in for treatment. Just one of those little things that we have to do to cure children. So for those of you who have had the distinct pleasure of spending an extended period of time, I think to me the whole point is that it really is quite magical to be in Kenya for a long period. So the fact that I was able to spend 9 months there was really amazing. From setting up the curriculum to enrolling fellows in training, even spending that Thanksgiving there with the the ability to make my grandmother's crescent dinner rolls for Thanksgiving dinner, the first time that those had ever been made on the continent, I'm sure. It really was great. So after that, I had a chance to return home for the holidays and came back in January of 2020 with my wife for her first visit to Kenya. Now, there were a few other things that were beginning to happen in 2020. There's something about this coronavirus somewhere. And deja vu, it was election time. There was a big debate about who was going to win. But that really didn't really make the mark in Kenya. So January, there were, many of the people in this room know that January is a favorite time to visit Kenya. You get to avoid a month of winter if you go. So Ayu House was quite full. There was a lot of activity going on. Heck, even on February, I went to the World Cancer Day walk through Eldoret town, being able to generate awareness and excitement about cancer and diagnosis and early diagnosis and treatment that was available. Having a big rally in the graduation grounds behind the hospital, that was a great opportunity. But even into February, and early March, I was still going on outreach visits to Kericho. We were gathering up teams that wanted to join us in a telemedicine course that we were doing. So that was really good. But by the time things came around, we had in March, IU was starting to recall non-essential personnel grant, and other students and trainees who were there were coming home. Even by the end of the month, I spent my birthday saying goodbye to Danita and Katrin and Michael Scanlon as they evacuated along with Adrian and his family in the 2 safari vehicles that they had to get all of themselves and their bags back to Nairobi and evacuate. So because I was on a Fulbright Scholar program, the State Department managed my travel. So after my first 2 attempts with flight cancellations, I was eventually got out on a Qatar Airways flight on the last day, 25th of March, which was the day the airport closed. So those last few days in Kenya actually were quite surreal almost. The hospital was gearing up for this influx. We had 4 ventilators in the hospital to handle 25 million people in case they were needed, so we're in good shape. We were learning how to don and doff protective gear, things like that. One of the things that I remember most vividly that last day before I left, I had a conversation with Jacob Bore, who was one of the IT staff in Ampath at the time. And it was interesting, his perspective, because we were worried about things like hoarding, and we had toilet paper on the shelves in Eldoret, unlike the U.S. So we were in better shape. But his perspective was that if the U.S. is having so much trouble with the coronavirus, how are we going to handle it in Kenya? And so I went through the talk of, at that time in March, we were talking about flattening the curve, right? Social distancing, wearing masks, trying to avoid gatherings, closing schools, with the idea that if you can flatten the curve, that you can keep your population safe. And that was a new concept for Kenya at the time. How do you flatten the curve there when you can barely diagnose and treat? And I made the point that really was that we didn't really need to flatten the curve. Kenya was young; it could handle that influx if there was one. And if we did have that one peak, we could always just pray, because I think that's the way we get through things in Kenya. We have a lot of faith in how to get through. The one silver lining to all of COVID, though, struck me that, as I was leaving on the hospital grounds, every entrance, they were building sinks. They were stocking them with soap and water. And in the 9 months between the times I came back, they built this another huge bank of sinks with soap and water that are still in use today. And, it just shows you that even the COVID pandemic can bring out the need that sinks can be those little things that really do make a big difference in how you can cure kids with cancer. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vic. Yes, it is the little things. Our sixth storyteller tonight is James Waititu Maina, a fifth-year medical student at Moore University, currently training in Indianapolis for 6 weeks through Ampath's bilateral exchange program, funded by NTES Global Health Education Fund. James is also a Mwangasa Scholar with full funding at Moore University School of Medicine. His story is titled, My Journey to Education.
Thank you so much. When I was 5, my father told me, son, I want to take you to school. And education is the only thing I can give you because we don't have any property for you to inherit. And that is when my academic journey started in a nearby school in my village in Muranga County. And when my father took me to that school, he told me that this is where you are going to, this is the place that is going to transform your life, and you are going to have some good life, and you're going to be happy in the future. So, but when I started school, the first 2 years proved otherwise, because I had to wake up very early in the morning, walk barefooted to school, and then, of course, those who have been to Kenya, they know the teachers used to discipline us thoroughly, and I could endure, as a boy, I used to endure several whips during the day, and that did make a lot of sense to me. So one day I went to my mother and told her, Mom, I don't want to go to school anymore. That time I was 8 years in class 3. And I told her, why don't you allow me to go to one of the village farms and start working so that I can get some few coins. And with that, you won't have to struggle yourself to wake me very early in the morning. And I would, and I also wouldn't have to wake up very early in the morning, so it will be a win-win situation. And of course, we don't always get what we want. So that was obviously not accepted. So I decided to come up with plans of how I'm going to skip school. And as any other young person, the first thing that I tried is to fake illness every morning. So I could wake up very sick, and my mother could pardon me and allow me to stay at home for like a day or two. But of course, that didn't go on for long because my mother just figured out my game. And she could even now force me to go to school even when I was very sick in the morning. So I decided to come up with a better plan. So one day, my mother packed woke me up in the morning as usual, packed some little ugali and sukuma wiki that was left over from yesterday, and escorted me to the gate. But now, instead of going to the school, I took a detour and went to my grandmother's place. And I spent the whole day there, and then came back home at around 4 p.m., the time when everyone else was going back home, and started telling my mom how nice the day was. I succeeded in doing that for the next 5 days. And that was until my mom met with my class teacher, Mrs. Sophia, around the shopping centers when my mom was vending some bananas. And she asked my mom, why is James not coming to school anymore? And my mom was like, what do you mean? James has been coming to school every day. And that is how my mom knew my plan. And as an African parent, I received thorough beating that night. And the following week, she now decided to take me to school herself. And that's what she did for the next 1 week. And I remember just a few days later, we had an exam in school. And to everyone's surprise, I was at the top of that class, despite missing about 50% of the classes. And I became very famous in that village and in that school. And people started talking about this young boy who is truant and always running out of school, but comes back to school and sits for an exam, and he's at the top of the class. And that is the time when I caught the attention of the head teacher who summoned me into his office. And when I went to his office, I remember the first question he asked me is, what do you want to become in future when you grow up? And as a village boy who had not seen so many professional people, I told him I want to become a driver. And for some reason, he didn't like that answer. So he started talking to me about different careers that he thought were better. And I remember him telling me every profession and what they do. So he's talked about how what pilots do, what engineers do, what teachers do, what lawyers do. And then he started talking about what doctors do. And I remember particularly him describing that a doctor can open your abdomen, cut through your intestines, and then return them back and stitch it back. And that was so impressive and exciting to me at that time. And I told him I want to become that person. So he told me, fine, if you want to become a doctor, unfortunately, in Kenya, you have to be the top students. Those who've been there, they know, like, in Kenya, for you to join medical school, you have to graduate top of your class. So he told me, fine, you have to be at the top of your game if you want to become a doctor. And I think that is a moment that changed my life because miraculously I became a good boy, started going to school every day, and I was telling everyone that I want to become a doctor, and my parents were so happy about it. Few years later, I did my national exam, and I was the top student in that region. Thank you. So that earned me a scholarship with Equity Bank, who sponsored me through my high school. And again, I did very well, graduated high school as one of the top students at that time. And now the moment that I have been waiting all my life came a couple of months later when I realized that I have been placed to Moi University to do medicine and surgery. And yeah, and that was really an important moment to me. So we had a lot of celebrations and excitement, but after that, reality set in because I didn't have a clear financial plan of how I'm going to sail through college. So we managed to raise some funds, and I took a loan, and we came to Eldoret. It was my first time coming to Eldoret, and from Murang'a to Eldoret, it's about 10 hours. So we came with as a very new person to that city, only to realize that at that time, students were not being offered accommodation. So I had to look for somewhere to, like a house to rent. And the very first year when I joined medical school, life became a little bit difficult because at some point I couldn't afford to raise the rent. And this prompted me to go to the dean's office to see whether I could get some help with the same. And this is when she introduced me to Mwangaza Scholarship. And she talked about how this program is funded by people from Indiana University. It was started in Indiana University and encouraged me to apply. When I applied for this scholarship, when I took the form and went back to my room, I remember telling my friend that I am applying for this scholarship that is funded by people from India. Because I had not heard of Indiana University before in my life. But a few months later, I came to learn that Indiana University is actually in the US when Professor Bozin was introducing me to Mwangaza as a scholar. And he introduced us to the program and told me that I've been awarded the scholarship. And from that time, the program has paid my school fees, they paid for my accommodation. I was given some active money, and all I had to do is to become a doctor. Yeah, early this year, I received the best news of my life that I will be coming to Indiana University for my exchange program. And I remember I called and the first thing I did was to call my mom and tell her that I'm coming to the US. And I remember my mom laughed really hard and told me, I know, James, this is one of your jokes. I had a hard time trying to convince her that that was true, but eventually she was very excited. I have really learned a lot from the university, and the program has opened my mind into different and diverse ways in which medicine can be practiced. And I'm really grateful that through generosity of other people, I have an opportunity to fulfill my dream of becoming a doctor. And I look forward to going back to the community and applying these skills that I'm learning to champion for healthcare access to my people. As the saying goes, when you use your own candle to light another person's candle, you do not diminish your own light, but you do brighten the room. Thank you so much. Asante sana.
Thank you, James. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Thank you. This young lady, I had so much fun with her in Eldoret in May. Dr. Sherri Bucher is a professor at the IU Fairbanks School of Public Health and the IU School of Medicine. She's a researcher, innovator, and educator with nearly 2 decades of expertise in maternal, child, and newborn health. Our story is called Breathe, Baby, Breathe. Welcome.
Good evening. Hamjambo. A few days ago marked my 20th anniversary of my very first trip to Kenya. I tagged along with Bill Tierney, and I'm still tagging along with him tonight. And, you know, a lot has changed in my professional and my personal life since that first trip 20 years ago. On my very first trip to Kenya, I was a married, stay-at-home mom with 2 incredible kids who were in elementary school. Within a very short period of time, 3 years later, by the fall of 2007, I was the mom to 4 incredible kids, 2 Ampath babies, one of whom was adopted, and the other who I fondly call my malaria baby because she was such an unexpected surprise that for weeks I thought, I can't possibly be pregnant, it has to be malaria. And in the fall of 2007, in addition to my 4 amazing kids, I started my dream job at Indiana University. It was a busy and crazy and wonderful time. And then my husband walked out. The next few months were really, really challenging because I was adapting to this new normal of being a single working mom of 4 incredible kids between the ages of 5 months and 13 years. And the advice that my mom gave me during that time was, just breathe, Sherri, just breathe. And so then in 2008, I was made aware of a grant from the American Academy of Pediatrics. They were searching for new partners to try to design and evaluate a brand new program for neonatal resuscitation. And I think my response in 2008 to that grant was probably the same as some of you in this room. I immediately Googled, what is neonatal resuscitation? And then I quickly found out that every year around the world, there are millions of babies who are born that are unable to breathe at birth. And in places like the United States and Europe, every single provider in a delivery room has to be trained and certified on neonatal resuscitation. As a result, there's not a lot of babies in America and Europe who die from birth asphyxia or the inability to breathe at birth. But in places where the Ampath consortium is most active, places like Ghana, Kenya, Nepal, and Mexico, there's still almost 1 million babies a year who die simply because they can't breathe at birth. Well, the American Academy of Pediatrics selected our site at Ampath to be one of only 2 global sites to fund for this new neonatal resuscitation program that they call Helping Babies Breathe. And so in the summer of 2009, myself and my colleagues from Moi Teaching and Referral Hospital and a team from the American Academy of Pediatrics came to Eldoret, and that summer we trained 40 physicians, nurses, and midwives from across 16 health facilities in 3 counties of Western Kenya on neonatal resuscitation. We also provided equipment to all of the participating facilities, including a bag and mask ventilation device, which is a piece of equipment that cost about $10. So then in October of 2009, there was a nurse midwife named Mary Wakesa, who was on the night shift at Bokoli Subdistrict Hospital in Western Kenya. There was a young woman named Emily who was brought to the hospital by her mother and by her husband, Davis. Emily was in labor, and it was a very long and challenging labor. By the time Emily, who was exhausted, was able to deliver her first child, the baby was blue, floppy, and completely silent. The moment that Emily's mother saw the baby, she began to wail. She was convinced the baby was dead. And Davis, Emily's husband, who was waiting anxiously in the hallway outside the labor and delivery ward, heard his mother-in-law start to keen. And he thought to himself, oh no, either I've lost my wife, or I've lost my baby, or I've lost them both. Meanwhile, inside the delivery room, Mary Wakesa's training kicked in. She took the baby, she dried him thoroughly, she rubbed his back, and she took a bulb suction device and she extracted thick secretions from the baby's mouth and nose. Nothing. The baby remained blue and flat and quiet. So Mary immediately clamped the umbilical cord, cut the cord, and moved the baby to a flat area that she had prepared before the delivery. She took that $10 piece of equipment and began to give breast to the baby, positive pressure ventilation. Meanwhile, a lab technician at Bokoli, Josephine Wanyama, had heard the commotion and came running to the delivery room. She burst through the door, and as soon as she did, Mary started to give her orders. Go put on those gloves, come over here, pinch the umbilical cord stump between your finger and your thumb, tell me what you feel. And as Josephine rushed to follow Mary's instructions, she leaned over this baby and she saw how blue and floppy and still he was. And she whispered to Mary, Mary, this baby isn't breathing. He's dead. Why are you struggling? And Mary said to her very quietly and calmly, let us try. This kid might come back. So then Josephine told Mary that indeed she was feeling a pulsation in this baby's cord. Mary seemed to get excited. She readjusted the baby's head, she reapplied the mask, and she continued to give breast to this baby. Breathe 2, 3, breathe 2, 3, breathe 2, 3, breathe, baby, breathe. And Josephine told me later that she thought her eyes were playing tricks on her, because in the dim light of this delivery room, while Emily and her mother were sobbing, Josephine thought she saw the baby start to change color. And then suddenly, he cried. He was alive. And that is how, on October 30th of 2009, baby Job became the first baby ever in the world to have been revived by a healthcare provider who had been trained on the Helping Babies Breathe program. The first baby in the world. In the years since, every time I go back to Kenya, I try to make time to go to Bokoli and visit with Mary and Josephine and with Emily and Davis and with Job and the growing family. And whenever I am there, I always pull out my own phone and I show them pictures of my 4 incredible children who are also growing up. When this story started, my kids were 5 months to 13 years. Now they're 17 years to 30 years. And my son is here, and it's his birthday today. I always thank Mary and Emily and Davis and Job himself now that he's of age, because in 6 weeks he's going to be 15 years old. And I thank them for graciously allowing me to continue to share their story in venues like this. The other thing we always remark about is how this small seed, this small grant that started in Kenya has grown into something with such huge impact. In the years since Mary Wakesa was the first person ever recorded to resuscitate a baby in Kenya, the Helping Babies Breathe program has rolled out to 80 countries around the world, and over 1 million people have been trained. It all started in Kenya. And it all started with Ampath. If it hadn't been for the Ampath partnership, if it hadn't been for the decades-long partnership between Indiana and Moi universities, if it hadn't been for the infrastructure that people like you in this room have built and nurtured and facilitated, we never would have got that grant, we never would have trained those people, Mary would have never been able to save Job. So from the bottom of my heart, from my team in Kenya, from all the mothers and the babies and the families and the communities that you have served over the years. Thank you. Asanteni sana.
Wow, thank you so much. Dr. Sherri Bucher is the only person I've been told you've seen her walking around Bomwani, around the Korogocho area. She just does her thing there, and I can't even do that what she does. But thank you so much, and happy birthday to your son. One more round of applause for all our storytellers tonight. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Asanteni sana, asante sana. Thank you, thank you. Special thanks to our volunteers tonight, to all our volunteers tonight. Jean, Mahan, Mills, our graphic designer, are you in the room? Thank you, thank you. Where is she? Where? Okay, there she's hiding. Thank you so much. Clint McCollum for the photography. Clint, right? Thank you, Clint, we appreciate you. IU medical students and Samanda scholars, thank you, thank you, thank you. So, if you are lucky enough to win a silent auction item tonight, you can pick it up at the auction table at the back of the theater. Okay? Your support of Ampath creates inspiring stories like those you've had tonight. Wow. This is an exciting time for Ampath in Kenya and beyond. Your continued support as an Ampath friend and donor will create even more stories and help more people get better access to quality care. Thank you for your time, your commitment, for being a cherished Ampath friend. Asante sana, thank you so much, thank you.